Hey, baby, I hear those blues a-calling. It's time for the Frasier on Frasier podcast. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas. We made it. It's the end of
We made it all the way to Christmas.
Happy it's Santa Claus's birthday.
It's the most magical time of the year.
It's snow bells will be jingling. Ring ting tingling.
It's actually mid-July as we're recording this.
Middle of July. Dead center.
Yep. But we are talking today about Miracle on 3rd or 4th Street, the 12th episode in season 1 of Frasier. Our very first Christmas episode of Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting in the Christmas spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're at home listening, why don't you bundle up next to a fire, drink you some hot cocoa, and listen to this.
Yep. Go and enjoy. It's Christmas in July. It's the Frasier on Frasier is bringing you the holiday cheer when you desperately need it in July.
So, Wes, we got what do you think of this episode? We got a lot of celebrities in this episode.
We had a rapid fire series of call-ins which featured names like Eric Stoltz, who you might know from Pulp Fiction.
Eric, I used to be in movies. Stoltz.
Yes, he was in The Fly 2. The superior Fly.
He was in Mask.
He was in Mask, but not the Jim Carrey Mask, the sad Mask with Rocky Dennis.
No, just Mask. The
Mask. Also, different names. Ben Stiller from the Ben Stiller Show. Hope he's doing well after the show got canceled.
I don't know.
Rosemary.
I don't know what he's been up to.
I've never heard of him before this moment in time. Rosemary Clooney, who you might know from the Rosemary Clooney Show. I did not mean to do that back to back with the Ben Stiller Show and the Rosemary Clooney Show. They both had eponymous shows. And then Mel Brooks,
who is alive at the time we're recording this. I'm just saying that in case that changes.
Right, at the time, yeah.
Between now and when we post this.
Yep. We were very unlucky with Carl Reiner, and hopefully our podcast isn't hexed. Hopefully Mel Brooks, at the time you're listening to this in the year 2121, is still alive and well at the age of 195.
Yes. And when we hope, we don't want anything to happen to Mel Brooks.
Absolutely not.
Light. Yeah. Although I do find he's telling a Christmas story in this episode,
right?
And he is notoriously not a Christmas celebrator.
He's Jewish, is what you're getting at, Adam.
Yes,
more of a Hanukkah celebrator.
Exactly.
Yes.
But he's in this, and he has probably one of the best. Lines in this episode.
We'll
Mommy, why did the puppy Santa bring me? Why isn't he moving?
Why is he dead? Well, it's the saddest Christmas story we've heard all night. That's solid, very fun.
I bet he wrote that himself.
Oh, you think? Do you think instead of a script, he just walked in and said?
I think that's something. Mel Brooks would do. So I guess we'll talk about how the episode kind of plays out. I mean, generally, so this is another we've been dealing with a lot of kind of bleak topics on Frasier.
I'm pretty sure the last 4 or 5 of 6 have been about human misery.
Right, and this one is no different, despite it being a Christmas episode. It is because Christmas, for some people, isn't a holly jolly time of year. It can be quite depressing if you don't have loved ones or people to spend it with, and that's kind of what Frasier's dealing with. He's dealing with the disappointment of not seeing his son, who was supposed to fly down from Boston to Seattle, for their first Christmas together.
Yes. And instead they're going to Euro Disney, which is the wrong thing to do in the long run.
Well, he's also getting to go on like a sleigh ride with Julia Andrews, which I would take that over flying to Seattle or wherever if I had the option.
Austria, the only place whiter than Seattle, a Christmas in Austria.
I mean, it's Sound of Music is Freddie's favorite movie, as we learned in this episode. So
it would be Austria.
So the episode's dealing with Frazier and it's disappointment over not getting to see his son and him basically, but through it all, he learns the true meaning of the Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
The Christmas.
Of the Christmas.
And we'll get started.
Mm-hmm.
So we open. It's Christmas Eve.
It is.
Yes, and KSL's having a little shindig, a little bash, Christmas bash. And everyone's drinking. God, everyone's drunk in this. I imagine
it's an office party, so everyone's getting as hammered as they possibly can.
Right, and we see Bulldog, we see Chopper Dave, and I think I now understand why Chopper Dave didn't get more episodes. It's because every time we introduce Chopper Dave has one joke, and that he's yelling constantly because he's so used to having to yell over the chopper blades when he's doing his traffic report.
Yeah.
So whenever he's in a scene, he's got to be yelling
full volume.
Right. And the reason why that doesn't really work from like a writing perspective, I guess, is because you have to have someone kind of point out like, hey, Chopper Dave, you don't have to yell. You're not on the air. You're not talking over helicopters.
Right.
And they've got to do that every time the Chopper Daves is in a scene, or else people who don't watch the show regularly won't know why this man is yelling for no reason.
Yeah, it's pretty, this show won an Emmy. I think it was for Chopper Dave. I feel like he is, in many ways, the human condition. You know, like, aren't we all yelling just a bit too loud, trying to get over the volume of the day-to-day?
Aren't we all yelling in our hearts?
Aren't we all screaming over the chopper blades that are monotony?
The chopper blades of society.
Of society. That's what it is.
So we get a short scene with Chopper Dave. We get a short scene with Bulldog, who wants Frazier to take over his slot for Christmas because he wants to go visit his family, and Frazier just kind of brushes him off immediately and says no because he's gonna see Frederick. Frederick is coming down with Lilith, and they're gonna spend the Christmas together.
Mm-hmm.
And we also introduced Bonnie Weems, who I think Bonnie Weems gets mentioned more than once on the show, but I think this is the only time we actually see her, the only actually time she talks, and apparently she's the office drunk.
Yes, she is a legend around the office apparently, and she is getting hammered. She is devastating her liver.
Right.
Yes.
Alcoholism is pretty funny.
I mean, yes, alcoholism is funny, and I would be hypocritical to claim that alcohol, because I've made a number of jokes about times I've gotten drunk, both in my stand-up and in my podcast, and in my day-to-day life. Getting drunk is, what isn't necessarily, she's a legend, she is, because apparently she will get real frisky with whoever decides to drive her home. And other people are mocking Frazier because he's sort of been pressured into, like, oh, you're the new guy, so you have to drive her home, and he's been sort of tricked into it. What is interesting,
he doesn't know what he's getting himself into.
Roz reveals that not only does she get a little romantic with the person who drives her home, she will not take no for an answer, which is like, yeah, I guess that was comedy gold in the original air date of
1993.
1993. It's a little bit more like, what the fuck do you mean she won't take no for an answer now?
I mean, that's also Bulldog's entire character.
No, for sure. There is definitely a bulldog. You couldn't the same way you could we this episode featuring Mel Brooks. You couldn't make Blazing Saddles today. You could not write Bulldog today.
You want to know something, Wes?
What do I want to know?
I still haven't seen Blazing Saddles.
It's a classic. It is a fun film.
I'm sure it is, and I need to see it eventually. And yeah, Bonnie Williams gets a little handsy with Frasier to the and
handsy implies she's more armsy because she just so the back and forth they have. Bonnie takes has a drink and she's like, oh hey, I'm Bon, and he's like, oh, I'm Frasier. I've offered to I'm the one driving you home, so if you want to drink, just let me know when you're ready to go. And then she finishes her drink, she chugs it, and then she says, I'm ready, and then picks him up by, the haunches and lifts him over her shoulder like a conquest. And presumably has her way with him in the parking lot. And then later at her home, I guess, is the implication.
Well, I think they say in the next scene that he basically just called a cab for her. I don't think he actually drove her home.
Okay,
perhaps, maybe, I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, people should have just been doing that for her this whole time. Or, I mean, if she'll take no for an answer, otherwise you just got a poor taxi driver assaulted. Frasier.
Yeah, that's on you. So in our next scene, we've got the Frazier household, the Frazier apartment. Niles is there, just sipping some eggnog. He sets it down. Eddie takes a sip without Niles noticing.
No.
He licks it, and then Niles picks back up and takes a big old drink from it, and that's comedy.
That's comedy.
That's how you do a joke with Eddie. He's dog, and that's it's funny when he eats things and then a human eats things.
Oh, that dog and his shenanigans. That dog.
So yeah, I think it's revealed that the reason Niles is here because he's having Daphne try on dresses for Maris.
It continues to be. It's been a story arc the entire first season. Is Niles I don't know if we've established that Niles dislikes Maris. He seems pretty tolerant of her lackluster behavior and the fact that she has weird quirks. But then whenever he's in the room with Daphne, he is head over heels into pursuing Daphne romantically. Although when you pressure him on it, he's like, "No, I'm married." But he also buys dresses and says they're gonna be gifts for Maris, but he wants Daphne to try them on to verify the fit.
And I think Frasier, I think, if not in the last episode, in this episode, I think he's definitely caught on to Niles' shenanigans.
Niles' hijinks.
And more to the point, I think it's mentioned at some point that, yeah, Niles or Daphne and Maris don't even have the same dress size. Maris, as we've been led to believe, is a very small woman, very thin woman, very frail woman. Mm-hmm. So it seems unlikely that she would share a dress size with anybody, let alone Daphne.
She is very, very small and very meek, but also has a shotgun that she shoots at animals that get near the trash can at the log cabin. She's a complicated character, this Maris. I, for one, can't wait to meet her in person.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to happen. So there's that whole bit with Niles. Martin walks in. He's doing some decorating. He's got some tacky Christmas decorations that he wants to put up, sort of a plastic wreath situation that's apparently been around since the 67.
Mm-hmm.
That's an old wreath.
That's a very, very old wreath.
And then, oh yeah, Lilith calls. Martin refers to her as the nag.
Mm-hmm.
Martin doesn't like Lilith.
And Frazier,
as we've kind of established.
An interesting dynamic is revealed. Frazier assumes that Martin is talking about Bulldog, his old pal his coworker.
Well, because Bulldog was nagging him about taking his spot because he wanted to see his family for Christmas.
I see.
So I think that was the implication, but of course it's not Bulldog, it's Lilith, and she's called with the unfortunate news that they will not be flying down to Seattle for Christmas. They will instead be going to Austria to have Christmas.
Yes.
I had like a mini stroke there.
Sounded like it.
They will be having Christmas at Euro Disney with all the Euro Disney characters.
Yes. They'll be riding, I'm pulling it up, Phantom... Wait, hold on. Is this... No, these are regular Disneyland rides. What is it? Disneyland Paris. Here we go. What are they getting into at Disneyland Paris? The website is loading a little slowly. It's a Small World, of course. Alice's Curious Labyrinth. Mickey's Magic, which is like Fantasia, but like Philharmonic. Do you get it? But it's Philharmagic because it's magic, but it's the there's also Big Thunder Mountain, which I can't tell if that's associated with the movie. Blanche-Neige et les Sept Nains.
Now, were all these things around in the 90s? Because I know it's gone through some change. For one, I don't think it was called Disneyland Paris. Because wasn't Euro Disney kind of a disappointment when it first opened?
It was not. It was not financially successful. I still don't believe it's financially successful at this point in time.
That's because of Michael Eisner.
Yep, I blame Michael Eisner for most. 22-year money-losing failure. Visitors in the top European park dropped 10% in the past 2 years. Not doing well. Just a bad idea. Just a bad park.
So, enjoy your Christmas at Euro Disney, Freddie.
You bet on the wrong horse, Fredward.
So Frasier's steamed because he's not gonna get to see his old buddy Frederick.
Mm-hmm.
His old buddy Chow Frederick.
His old son. His old as the hill son.
So he's real steamed about that. There's also, God, what else is in the scene that I wanted to talk about? The scene ends with him deciding that he's going to fill in for Bulldog after all. Since there's no reason for him to be at home during Christmas, then he might as well just work.
Might as well go do the radio, do some old radio. What he doesn't realize is Roz, as his producer, has to come in now because he can't be the producer and the radio host. They're gonna, if he agrees to it,
even though they do that later on in the episode.
Ugh, ridiculous.
I also want to mention real quick, at some point Frazier pulls out some Christmas lights that are made to look like chili peppers.
Mm-hmm.
Which I remember these. I think my parents had these.
I think they're pretty slick. I think they're pretty neato.
It was a very fashionable thing in the 90s to have sort of these non-traditional Christmas lights, and these chili pepper lights were everywhere, as I recall.
They're pretty cool. But Martin says these aren't Christmassy and isn't happy about it. And Frazier wants to put them on, and they get into a fight over these chili pepper lights. And they decide to fight, and then Frazier decides to split, go on radio, do some radio tonight.
Yeah, that's what prompts their fight, and his decision to go on the radio was the chili pepper lights. I've got to side with Martin on this one. I think those things are kind of tacky, and I'm surprised that a man like Frazier with such refined tastes would have something like that.
It's fun. Sweaters are tacky. Christmas is as a
I
holiday
mean,
is tacky.
at least sweaters are like fitting with the theme of Christmas.
The theme is what you make of it, and
I guess. I mean, there are definitely worse things, but speaking of stuff that I'm surprised Frazier has, in the next scene he's wearing. He's at the radio station. He's apologizing to Roz for making her to come in on Christmas because he's decided to do his radio show. Frasier has a sweatshirt and jeans, which I don't think we've ever seen him wear such an outfit.
Torn jeans. This is a reference that you might not get, Adam. As a wrestling fan, he looks a lot like the Brooklyn Brawler. Just a very torn up shirt, messy. I'm gonna get a picture and then I'm gonna put it in.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, just a mess of a man. Not very well kempt in the slightest.
Oh my God, you're right.
He looks a lot like the Brooklyn Brawler.
That is pretty much accurate.
That is yeah.
So he's in his Brooklyn Brawler outfit. I guess he decided because it's Christmas and he's working and he's not really. I don't know why he decides to dress like this. It seems like he wouldn't. I mean, it plays an important part in later on in the episode because Frasier gets mistaken for a homeless man.
Yes.
But I feel like there's little motivation for him to be wearing this outfit.
Just not didn't feel like dressing up today, I guess. I'm stunned he dressed.
In fact, this comes up again. Whenever Frasier dresses like not nice, whenever he gets mistaken for a homeless man. This is a thing that happens more than once in the Frasier
in the
saga.
Frasier-verse. in the Frasier saga. I'm stunned he doesn't dress like a slob more often because he's a radio star and no one can see him. Who cares?
Oh, I mean, but that's Frasier. He's a gentleman. He wants to dress up and put his best foot forward. And even though he's on the radio, you can tell he's very well dressed just from the sound of his voice.
Yeah.
And I think his radio show, I think it comes across in his radio show that he does on Christmas that he is dressed this way because it's very low energy. He tries to put on a happy face for like the first couple calls, but the calls get more and more depressing.
Right.
We get one call that's about
first call that we time-lapse through is that someone got mugged on their way home from the soup kitchen, which is a gut punch of a story. We then go through Don, played by Eric Stoltz, who reveals, like, hey, I want to put you in the Christmas spirit, share you some charitable stuff. I was driving, I left my gym shoes on the roof of my car. I looked back, I saw a homeless man. I'd already put on the shoes, so I kept driving. That's my, there you go, Merry Christmas. And Frasier...
Yeah, Frasier points out that it's not, like, the alternative to this would have been turning around and snatching a pair of dirty gym shoes out of a homeless man's hands.
Yeah.
Like, you did the very bare minimum to like have a happy Christmas moment.
Mm-hmm. Then we cut to Barry, played by Ben Stiller, who we're not 100% clear on what his problem is, even now, because he's openly weeping and trying to stop himself from openly weeping, and then continuing. Frasier will put him on hold and say, please stay on the line, we'll check back in with you. And he is just non-stop openly weeping. Then we go to Gladys, played by Rosemary Clooney, who has fallen in the shower so many times they can't put any more pins in her hip.
God, that's sad.
Yeah, there's just no space for pins. And then we go to Mel Brooks, who's playing Tom, and he says, we already said the line, But I feel like
right. He's telling a story about when he was a young boy and his parents got him a puppy for Christmas, but when they opened the box, the puppy was dead.
Now, it does seem like Tom is actively seeking like some psychological help because he's talking about trauma, and he talks about how he woke up on Christmas morning, and Frasier just says, "Congratulations, that's the saddest story we've heard all day." Click, which is I mean, it's proof that Frasier isn't his best self, isn't at the top of where he is.
Right.
Raw,
like on a normal day, he may have offered him some sort of psychological coping mechanism. But yeah, in this instance now, he's just
he's done.
He's done.
Yeah. We then he goes to commercial. We reveal that Roz has been openly weeping for the last hour, and Frasier hasn't tuned in on it at all. And Frasier's like, "Please go home and hang out with your mom. I'm sorry, I'll do this by myself for the next couple hours." And they hug. They do this bit where they do a bit at the beginning where Frasier wants to hug Roz even though he looks like the Brooklyn Brawler, and then Roz hugs Frasier before she goes, and that's kind of that whole thing. Frasier tries to come in with a good attitude for the last 2 hours and is immediately put off by Jeff, who starts talking about how he found a way to beat the Christmas blues by watching The Sound of Music, which is, of course, a film set in Austria, and it's Freddie's favorite film. And Frasier is immediately put back into a state of depression.
Right. Because he's reminded of his own troubles with the Sound of Music and how it relates to his sorry situation. Mm-hmm. So we move on. Frasier says I think Frasier says he's going to go get something to eat after this is all said and done, and he winds up stopping by, I guess, Lou's Diner, which is a eatery in Seattle. And this is just sort of a typical diner. He's not eating anywhere fancy. He's just at a good old-fashioned American diner. Mm-hmm. We're probably going to be the only real places that are open on Christmas anyway.
Yep.
So he gets the Christmas platter. It comes with a Yule log for dessert. What is a Yule log exactly? I've never.
A Yule log is it is a Christmas block, or it's a Yule log, a Yule clog, or Christmas block. It is a what is this? What on earth?
It's sort of it's sort of one of those little roll cakes.
It's a rolled cake. What's in it, you ask? It's a rolled filled sponge cake, frosted with chocolate buttercream to look like a tree bark, and festooned with meringue mushrooms, marzipan, holly sprigs, spun sugar cobwebs, and any sort of edible decoration.
Do you just get a whole one of those to eat with your meal?
Yeah, you just get a...
does each person get a whole Yule log to eat?
An entire Yule log. They actually chip it out of a Yule tree, and they chop it down. You can't serve it in small portions. You've got to give a full log of Yule.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah, like this what is this diner?
Oh, it's a nightmare of a place. It's Lou's Diner. And here's the thing, when you look at the transcript, as we both are, like, the joke of the woman going, "Welcome to Lou's," it's like, oh, because losers, I get it. But it was a laugh that I was
is that the joke?
I think that was the joke. I think that, I assume that's what level the audience was at. Otherwise, they just laughed at the name Lou, and that's how I heard it.
I think it was the delivery.
Oh, you think?
It was...
All right.
Yeah. Because she's like, "Welcome to Lou." She's like sort of that, rough around the edges diner waitress that you see so often.
That old battle axe archetype.
Yeah. And apparently she's credited as Lou, so she's Lou. She is who the diner is named after.
That's fun. She is Lou. That's fun.
Yeah, Christine Eastabrook.
Yeah.
That name sounds familiar. She's been in stuff, hasn't she? She was in Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 2.
Oh, one of the good ones. That's cool. She was in Desperate Housewives, Sea of Love, and other stuff. Catch That
Yeah.
Kid, starring Kristen Stewart and Corbin Blue.
You're just reading off the bad one. She was an usual suspect.
Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford. Is That a Gun in Your Pocket, which was a film that came out in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Little Monk, which is a web series. Like, have you ever seen Young Sheldon?
I've not. I've seen Sheldon. I've seen Adult Sheldon. I've seen the Adult Sheldon Show, whatever that is.
I believe it's called Adult Sheldon Show. Well, if you've seen Adult Sheldon, then you probably understand Young Sheldon. And if you've seen Monk, you probably understand.
Is it like him older?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're getting off track.
We are in fact.
So Lou, Frazier goes to Lou's. He strikes up a conversation with Tim. Bill. Or no, it's Tim. Yeah, Tim. Tim's a homeless man.
Yes.
Who's also eating at the diner, and Tim says he's having a Merry Christmas because he was just he found these beautiful pair of sneakers that just flew off the back of someone's car.
Yeah, free sneakers, and
so that's a callback to the joke, the earlier joke where we had the man who was the owner of the sneakers calling into the radio program.
Yep.
Again, I think that's something that this particularly these earlier seasons of Frasier does really well, are these callback jokes. We also get Bill, who's played by, what's his name? Hawthorne James.
James.
I recognize him from, he's been in a bunch of stuff.
Oh.
He's got a very distinctive look.
Mm-hmm. He was in Speed.
He was apparently in Seven. He was in Speed. He was also in an episode of Cheers.
Ah.
Which I found interesting.
Do you think it's the same character in the Cheers verse as it is in the Frasier verse?
I mean, conceivably, he may have moved from Boston to Seattle and then came homeless.
I bet he's also the same character in Seven.
I also want to point out there's a picture on IMDb. It's a screenshot of apparently an episode of Martin that he was on, and it's him wearing a Santa outfit, but underneath he's got like a suicide vest strapped to him, like he's got like dynamite and grenades and like a hammer or something.
Okay.
So I've never seen Martin, but that must have been a hell of a Christmas episode.
What an adventure for Hawthorne James.
So basically Frasier is having this meal at this diner. He's with some homeless gentlemen. Frasier finishes his meal only to discover that he apparently has left his wallet at home.
Yes.
So he makes a plea to Lou, the waitress, that he can pay, but he doesn't have his wallet right now, so he can come back. And she's about to give him. You can tell that she's about to give him the business.
But to give him that business,
this homeless man Tim cuts in and he offers to pay for Frasier's meal.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very nice, especially for a man who doesn't have clearly much money. It's very, very nice of him. And it's made clear, though, that this is because they're under the impression that Frasier is also homeless. When
he's a peasant.
Very
he's a serf on account of he's got these Brooklyn Brawler clothes.
Right. So Frasier is initially hesitant, but I guess he accepts and is taken aback by this very kind gesture. And it's sort of a nice little moment for Frasier. He says, "I'll never forget this Christmas. Thank you all." And Tim also talks about, don't be embarrassed. Look at it this way: the rest of the year belongs to the rich people with their fancy houses, expensive foreign cars. And he points to Frasier's BMW, which is parked outside the diner.
Yeah.
But Christmas belongs to guys like us.
Yep.
So, it's a very nice little moment. And Frasier accepts the kind gesture, and he walks out to his. He walks out, and there's this awkward moment where he's like, he has to get into his BMW to leave.
Right.
He doesn't necessarily want the people in the diner who assumed that he was homeless see him get into this BMW.
Yeah.
So he has to kind of crouch down to get into it.
He can't really reveal the grift on account of he didn't intend the grift, but also I guess they'll rise up against him if they know he drove here in a BMW.
Right.
Right.
They'll form a mob and they'll chase him down the streets.
They'll pop his tires and they'll rip open his doors and they'll put him in the guillotine, as the rabble is known to do.
They'll put more holes in his shirt.
I mean, there aren't really places left to put holes in that shirt, but they'll find a way.
So Frazier, he kind of crouches down to get into his BMW so no one will really see or notice him, and only to discover that he doesn't have his keys. We cut to inside the diner where Lou, the waitress, finds his keys, and she asks around if anyone lost them, and of course Frazier's not in there, right. And she just sort of hangs on to them.
Right.
So Frazier walks back in discreetly looking for his keys that he's lost. And they're kind of like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, well, you see, I forgot to wish you guys a Merry Christmas."
Everybody says Merry.
It's a nice save.
Yeah. And
so he
and at that point, Tim, the man who's called a collection to get Frazier's meal paid for, gives him additional money to make a phone call to his dad.
Right, because if Frazier mentioned that he had a fight with Martin over the chili pepper lights, so Tim gives him a dime to call his old man, which I may have to explain this. So there used to be a thing called payphones.
Okay.
And the way it worked is they had them lying around, strewn about. And you would put in a dime, you'd call someone, and that's what people did before they just had phones on them at all times.
And you would see the face of the other. It was like a FaceTime, like video chat.
No, it wasn't. No, it was audio only.
Oh, and
it was like a FaceTime audio call.
So you would put in a dime, and then you would use it to text like, "Hey, I'm about to call you. Get ready."
It wasn't. No, it wasn't in text.
But how did people know to pick up the number if you weren't texting? Hey, this is me. I'm calling you on a number you won't.
This is before caller ID. People would just answer their phones without any regard for who was on the line, whether they be a close family member or a telemarketer or what have you. It was a ridiculous system. The 90s were terrible. I'm glad we're done with them.
What a nightmare! What a terrible time. No wonder this was a horrible Christmas. They were just picking up the phone all willy-nilly.
And it is on that horrible note that we end the episode.
Yeah.
Miracle on 3rd or 4th Street.
3rd or 4th Street.
Is that a reference? I mean, I know it's a reference to the
Miracle on 34th Street,
but is beyond that, does that have any significance?
Seattle 3rd Street. Is that a thing?
I mean, I imagine they have a 3rd. I mean, most places have a 3rd or 4th Street. I would think.
What about places that only have 2 streets, Adam? What of them?
I guess you got me there.
I do in fact. 3rd, well, there's 5th Avenue in Seattle. 3rd, 4th, 5th Avenue, close to Century Square. There's a Walgreens pharmacy there. Let's see, if I look up Lou's in Seattle.
Is that where KCL is there? Is that?
That's a good question.
I think it's said at some point that KCL is like on 3rd Street or 4th Street or someplace near there. I could be making that up. I don't know why it is pointless to debate why the writers Christopher Lloyd named this episode the way he did.
Yeah.
It was just meant to be a pun on a classic Christmas story, and that's about it. We're reading too much into it.
Yep, that sounds like a thing.
Wes, what did you think this episode? Was it horribly depressing?
I mean, it's. I think it's interesting. Frasier might be making me numb at this point. I imagine at some point it'll stop being sad, but for right now, it's just it's gut punch after gut punch, week in and week out. So I mean, I'm enjoying it. Here's the thing. Here's the point I was getting at was this was a sad episode, but in terms of the last 6 episodes, it's the 5th or 6th saddest episode, which still make it the second or third happiest.
Yeah, and we didn't get to meet Freddy this episode.
We did not.
But that will come eventually. Okay. And let's see, what do we got? What do we got coming up? What's our next episode? Is Guess Who's Coming to Breakfast?
Guess Who's, which I assume tackles race.
It doesn't.
Oh,
no, it doesn't.
I thought Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Guess Who's Coming to Breakfast? Is that not?
Or Guess Who, starring Ashton Kutcher?
Ah, that's a good point. Is this episode starring Ashton Kutcher?
No, I wish Ashton Kutcher was in an episode.
Is this a Frasier 2.5 Men crossover? How old was Ashton Kutcher at the time of the show? 1993. Ashton was.
Was doing Punks.
He was 15 at the time, Adam.
I was.
He was several years away from Punked. Let's see. He didn't do Punked until 2003. He was doing that 70s show first. Yeah. He's 5 years away from that 70s show.
All right. So Guess Who's Coming to Breakfast? Frasier is surprised and flustered when a neighbor spends the night with Martin and quickly makes a fool of himself talking about it over the air. So this sounds a little bit more upbeat. Mm-hmm. We get a fun little episode. Martin apparently has a woman in his life. Ooh. And Frasier is not prepared for it.
But presumably it's not a telescope woman.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Is Martin like the George Costanza where we're like, oh, when is Martin gonna set? But he keeps betting any number of women over the course of the sitcom. Does he have a remarkable number of partners and conquests over the course of this show? Just let me know now. Give me a wink.
He has a decent amount.
Tap your nose.
He has a decent amount, not more than Frasier, I don't think.
Okay.
Frasier, I think, beats out everybody in terms of, people, relationship. Maybe even Roz. At least in terms of on-screen. But yeah, that's our episode, people. Hope you enjoyed it. Merry Christmas.
And
Christmas. A Happy New Year.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy...
whatever you celebrate.
Winter solstice.
Celebrate. Yes.
Yeah, happy nothing.
Happy holidays.
If you don't celebrate, get out, but do it. Don't.
So we'll see you in the new year, everybody.
Happy what is no, I haven't. Happy Three Kings Day. Bye.
All right, that was good. How long was that?
That was 43 minutes.
The Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KACL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.